Good evening, everybody. This is Sarah. My discussion this evening is going to be about downward communication. My paper focused on downward communication and how it creates a culture of excellence in a healthcare environment. Through my literature review, I reviewed 15 journals, articles, and books about communication through organizations. My first sections were about theories in strategic communication. And I found that with transformational leadership as a behavioral leadership theory, it supports how leaders focus on an organization's mission and vision and how they create and develop a culture of excellence and a positive culture. So when considering organizational communication, leaders have to look from above and look at the big picture and create a perspective for the team. And what that does is it creates a forward-thinking approach on how to create effective downward communication and how that creates success. As a professional, we have to take a look at not just ourselves, but as also the mission and the culture, and also take a look at the team. So professionals in any kind of industry, no matter if it's healthcare or business or even in a church, professionals communicate through many different channels and they're considered in a higher class, but we don't think of ourselves in higher class because we have to think about our employees as well. So in terms of thinking of the big picture, professionals have to create a strong mission and positive culture, and that helps to define the organization. So an organization's culture incorporates its values, its vision, its mission, or the goals, and that organization strives to achieve those through the values, vision, and mission and goals. Through processes, designs, and methods of communications, leaders are subjected to the idea that all forms of communication, whether it's written, whether it's verbal, electronic, it must be effective, clear, accurate, transparent, and above all, must be professional. So it's not just about talking and about writing, it's about creating relationships, connections, and what that does is it establishes a relationship of positivity between a leader and the leader's team. And organizations create their own ideas about how communication is going to be transmitted. They make decisions about how communication takes place. Is it going to be email? Is it going to be through meetings? Is it going to be written through letters or memos? And as such, leaders and organizations become the designers of their own methods of communication. So in that, we are not only communicators, but we are designers of our own communication. The responsibilities of a leader are one of the most important aspects of creating success in a culture of excellence. So through effective communication, that's the foundation of creating success in any industry. In any organization, we go through change. I always say, if anything is consistent in healthcare, it's change. So as a leader, effective downward communication is important because it creates a culture of support during a time of change. And change can be scary, but when we utilize effective downward communication, that change can be not as scary. The leaders must present the initiatives in a very positive light. And as we go through a change together in an organization, the organization grows, and as such, the communication skills must grow along with that. My argument is that emails are not an effective method of communication. So the majority of communication in my organization is through a vast number of emails, and they require a specific number of actions or tasks to be completed, which creates a lack of clarity, confusion, frustration, and errors, and that's continuing in the downward communication to the team. Communication must be meaningful, timely, accurate, and it must be done with a method that is easy to use, but yet it has to be technical enough to be able to handle the capacity of communication that's required by the organization. So you can imagine a large organization with over 6,000 employees, email is going to get weighed down with a lot of communication. So my hypothesis is that Microsoft SharePoint site is an effective method to use downward communication in an organization, and it creates a higher level of satisfaction and also engagement for people who use the site. I used SharePoint in direct sales with a team of over 500 people. It was very effective, and I was very successful in being able to train and support my team. And we were successful for 3 years in a row with over $1 million in sales. And SharePoint was a large part of that. And it enabled me to communicate with a large number of people accurately, effectively, and use a network of tools in one location, not just a string of emails in a forum or in a group email. My current system, my hospital system, has over 6,000 employees, and the main source of communication is through email threads. With this large network, you'd think that we'd have a better communication method, but email is the primary source. So in a 2-week period, I receive, send, and draft about 400 emails. And this communication method does not create a culture of excellence, but a culture of getting lost in the mix of electronic mail, or as I like to call it, email jail. My theory is that the collective, or the hospital, joined the otherwise antiquated generation of using email as an effective means of downward communication, but failed at actually analyzing what methods of communication create a culture of excellence, create success, and not a sense of being trapped in an email thread. To close, before my biblical perspective, effective downward communication ensures that employees are engaged in active and purposeful work, and then effective downward communication increases job satisfaction and creates a culture of excellence. From a biblical perspective, from James chapter 1, verse 19, "Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger." From a leader's perspective, it's the responsibility of the leader to communicate effectively about rumors, hold employees accountable for communicating inappropriately, and live up to a high standard and one that's worthy in God's eyes. I had an employee who felt that it was appropriate to spread rumors about other employees. She was slow to listen, quick to speak, and quick to anger, the opposite of what God wants us to do. And it created a lot of damage. And it hurt people. And what that does is it creates a culture of negativity. So as leaders, we need to embrace the power of effective communication to our team to ensure that we are living up to a high standard through God's eyes. So one of my last closing comments is something that I developed about downward communication that I think is quite poignant. Downward communication starts at the top. Like a waterfall, it keeps flowing until it has no place to flow, but the cycle remains. Effective communication starts at the source, hits rocks along the way, spills into a whirlpool of dissent, and eventually pools into a place of peace with the receivers of the message ready for action and ready for success. Thank you.